He moved with the quiet efficiency of someone used to not being noticed, head slightly lowered, shoulders relaxed, eyes always tracking. The kind of man people instinctively overlooked. He wore worn sneakers, faded jeans, and a gray hoodie with frayed cuffs. Slung over one shoulder was a small backpack, the kind sold in airport gift shops, except this one had a child's clumsy drawing stitched onto the side, a stick figure plane chasing the sun. In his other hand, he held the hand of a little girl. She was 8, maybe 9, with braids tied in uneven bows and a purple jacket that was one size too big. She looked around the cabin with open curiosity, eyes wide as passengers settled into their seats. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his sleeve, "are we really flying above the clouds?" "Yes," he said, smiling down at her. Right above them. Her face lit up. They reached row 12, window seat, 12F. As he helped her climb in, a businessman across the aisle sighed loudly, annoyed at the delay. A woman 2 rows ahead complained about overhead space. Someone laughed at a joke on their phone. Life continued, loud and ordinary. No one noticed how the man automatically checked the exit rows. No one noticed how his gaze flicked to the wings as if greeting an old friend. No one noticed how, when he sat down, his hand briefly touched the armrest like a pilot resting fingers on a familiar throttle. He buckled his daughter in first, tugging the strap gently to make sure it was snug. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Will it be bumpy?" "Maybe a little," he said softly. "But I'm right here." As he fastened his own seatbelt, a flight attendant passed and smiled politely. To her, he was just another single dad, probably divorced, probably exhausted, probably grateful for a quiet flight. She had no idea. The plane pushed back from the gate. Engines hummed to life. The vibrations traveled through the floor, into his feet, up his spine. His chest tightened for a split second, not with fear, but with memory. Years ago, those vibrations meant something else. Years ago, engines screamed instead of hummed. He closed his eyes briefly as the aircraft accelerated down the runway. Lily pressed her face to the window, gasping as the ground fell away. "We're flying," she laughed. "Yes," he said, "we are." As the plane climbed, clouds swallowed the world below. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Passengers relaxed. Some slept. Some worked. Some ordered drinks. The man in 12F stayed alert. Not anxious. Not tense. Just aware. Old habits die hard. Lily pulled a coloring book from her backpack and began scribbling airplanes in bright, impossible colors. He watched her, smiling faintly. This quiet moment, was the life he'd fought to protect. Once, the sky had been his battlefield. Now, it was just a way to get his daughter home. An hour into the flight, everything changed. It started with a sound, subtle, almost unnoticeable to most. A change in engine pitch. A vibration slightly out of rhythm. His head lifted instantly. Another passenger frowned. Someone removed their headphones. Lily looked up at him. "Daddy, it's okay," he said, though his eyes were no longer on her coloring book. The plane jolted. Harder this time. A few gasps echoed through the cabin. Overhead bins rattled. A baby began to cry. The seatbelt sign flashed back on with a sharp ding. The man's jaw tightened. That wasn't turbulence. That was imbalance. A moment later, the captain's voice came over the intercom. Calm, practiced, but carrying an edge only professionals recognized. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a minor technical issue. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Minor. The word meant nothing by itself. It was what pilots said when they didn't yet know how big the problem was. Lily's fingers curled into his sleeve. "You promised," she whispered. He covered her hand with his own. "And I meant it." The plane shuddered again, longer this time. A low murmur spread through the cabin, fear trying to stay polite. The man leaned slightly forward, listening. Feeling. Hydraulics. Control surface lag. Asymmetric thrust. His mind ran through possibilities automatically, effortlessly, like muscle memory. Another announcement crackled through the speakers, this time less composed. "If there is anyone on board with aviation or military flight experience," the captain said, pausing for just a fraction too long, "please notify a flight attendant." Silence fell. People exchanged glances. Some looked around nervously. Others stared straight ahead, pretending not to hear. The man in seat 12F exhaled slowly. He had hoped, prayed. This part of his life was over. Lily looked up at him, eyes searching his face. Daddy. He squeezed her hand gently. Stay here. Don't unbuckle. Then he raised his hand. A flight attendant hurried over, her professional smile tight. Yes, sir. He spoke quietly, so only she could hear. Former military pilot. Her eyes sharpened. What aircraft? Fighter. He said simply. She swallowed. Please come with me. As he stood, a few passengers stared. Someone whispered, what's going on? Another muttered, great, now we're really in trouble. He ignored them. At the cockpit door, the attendant knocked quickly. It opened, and the captain looked out, tired, focused, calculating. What's your experience? She asked. He met her gaze without hesitation. U.S. Air Force, he said. F-22 Raptor. Her breath caught. Call sign, she asked, almost afraid to hear it. Ghost 1. For a heartbeat, the cockpit was utterly silent. Then the captain stepped aside. Get in here. As the door closed behind him, Lily watched from her seat, heart pounding. She had never seen her father look like that, so still, so certain. Outside the aircraft, unseen by the passengers, air traffic control made a decision. 2 fighters were scrambled, high above the clouds, sleek silhouettes cut through the sky, accelerating with purpose. When the pilots received the briefing, one word made both of them sit up straighter. The first sign that something had changed came over the secure military channel. Eagle lead to control, confirm passenger identification. Static hissed, then the reply came, clipped and unmistakably serious. Confirmed. Former F-22 pilot. Call sign Ghost 1. Inside the cockpit of the lead F-22, Captain Ryan Hale felt his grip tighten on the stick. You've got to be kidding me, his wingman muttered. They had both heard the stories. Every fighter squadron had them, passed down between instructors and rookies, whispered during late-night maintenance checks and long simulator sessions. A pilot who flew missions so classified they never made it into official records. A call sign spoken with a mix of respect and disbelief. Ghost 1 didn't crash. Ghost 1 didn't panic. Ghost 1 brought everyone home. Eagle lead copies, Hale said, voice suddenly formal. We have visual on the civilian aircraft. Holding escort. Both fighters adjusted formation instinctively, their movements crisp, almost ceremonial. Without being told, both pilots straightened in their seats. If Ghost 1 was on that aircraft, then failure was not an option. Inside the commercial jet's cockpit, the air felt heavy. Warning lights glowed amber. Instruments told an uneasy story. One engine lagging, control response slightly delayed. Not catastrophic. Not yet. The man who had been C-12F studied the panel like a forgotten language coming back to him. His posture changed. Gone was the tired slouch of a single father. In its place stood a pilot. Calm, grounded, precise. You've got asymmetric thrust, he said quietly. Left engines compensating late. The captain blinked. That's what we suspected. Trim's fighting you, he continued. Ease off manual correction. Let the system settle, then reintroduce gradually. She hesitated only a second, then nodded. All right. He wasn't issuing orders. He didn't need to. His confidence carried weight without force. The plane shuddered once more, then steadied. Outside, the F-22s slipped closer, unseen but ever present. Their sensors painted a perfect picture of the struggling aircraft. Civilian birds stabilizing, the wingman reported. Copy, Hale replied. Maintain escort. Back in the cabin, passengers sensed the shift. The violent vibrations softened into a low, manageable hum. The murmurs quieted. Some people clasped hands. Others whispered prayers. Lily sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the cockpit door. She didn't know exactly what her father was doing, but she knew this was important. She knew this was who he really was. In the cockpit, the man adjusted his headset, listening to air traffic control, to the captain, to the aircraft itself. Fuel levels are good, the first officer said. Hydraulics holding. We don't need to divert immediately, the man said. But you'll want a longer runway. Minimal crosswind. ATC's voice came through. We have military escort standing by. The captain glanced at him. They know who you are. He nodded once. Figures. For a brief moment, memories pressed in. Dark skies, afterburners, threats on radar screens that meant life or death. He pushed them aside. This wasn't combat. This was home. Bring her down easy, he said. She wants to land. Dash dash dash. High above, the two F-22s followed faithfully. Hard to believe he's just sitting in there, the wingman said. Hale exhaled. Some pilots never stop flying. They just change what they're flying for. As the civilian aircraft began its descent, Hale felt something unexpected: pride. Not for himself, not even for the Air Force, but for the idea that legends didn't always end in museums or memorials. Sometimes, they ended in row 12. Dash dash dash. The landing approach was tense but controlled. The man stood slightly behind the captain, offering quiet guidance. No panic, no raised voice, little more rudder, he said. There, hold that, good, you've got it. The runway rushed up to meet them. Wheels touched down, once, twice, then the unmistakable roar of reverse thrust filled the cabin. The aircraft slowed, and stopped. For half a second, there was silence. Then the cabin erupted. Applause thundered through the plane. People cried openly. Strangers hugged. Someone shouted, "We're alive." The man stepped back as the captain removed her headset, hands shaking slightly. "Thank you," she said, voice thick. "I don't think. You did fine," he replied. "You just needed space." She studied him. "Why did you leave?" He smiled faintly. "Because there was someone who needed me more than the sky." The cockpit door opened. Lily stood there, eyes shining. "Daddy." He knelt instantly, pulling her into his arms. "I'm here." Outside, the unexpected happened. As the passengers disembarked, ground crews paused. Phones were lowered. Conversations stopped. Two F-22 Raptors streaked low across the runway, engines roaring, wings rocking in a perfect, disciplined salute. In the cockpit of the lead jet, Hale brought his hand to his helmet in a sharp, precise motion. "For Ghost 1, he said quietly. Passengers gasped. Some cheered. Others simply stared in awe. The man felt the vibration in his chest, not from the engines, but from something deeper. Not pride, not glory, recognition. He took Lily's hand and walked into the terminal, blending back into the crowd. No uniform, no medals, just a father and his daughter. "Daddy," Lily asked softly, "were those jets for you?" He looked down at her and smiled. "They were for a promise." "What promise?" He glanced back once at the sky, now calm and endless. "That some people protect the world," he said, "and some people protect one small part of it."